Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to break down something that absolutely frustrates parents and caregivers every single year. Picture this. You've packed the perfect summer picnic, the sandwiches are made, you drove out to the park, the blanket is laid out in the warm sun, and the kids are happily playing. It's perfect, right? But then, in literally less than 10 seconds, that entire idyllic afternoon is completely derailed. All it takes is one single buzzing insect to crash the party, and suddenly there's screaming, crying, and a desperate sprint to the safety of the car. So today we're talking about why children develop such an intensely powerful fear of stinging insects, like bees and wasps, and exactly how we can help them overcome it. Let's dive right in.
We've all been there, right? A child point-blank refusing to go outside, abandoning their brand new toys in the yard, or literally trapping themselves indoors on a gorgeous July day just because they spotted one solitary wasp near the porch. So why does this specific fear take such a sudden and incredibly strong hold over them? I mean, on the surface, it seems completely disproportionate to the actual size of the bug. A tiny insect really shouldn't hold a child hostage. But there's actually a very deep, structural, and even evolutionary reason for this severe reaction that we need to unpack to really understand what our kids are going through.
All right, Section 1. Why the fear makes sense, and validating the threat.
Look, here is the truly fascinating thing about this specific childhood fear. Unlike being afraid of monsters hiding under the bed, or, the boogeyman in the dark closet, most children actually know that stinging insects are a real physical threat. It genuinely hurts to get stung. A bee sting brings sharp, immediate physical pain, and on top of that, they usually know someone, maybe a friend at school, a sibling, or even you, who has been stung before. So this fear, it's truly rational at its core. It is based on a real-world, painful possibility that actually exists out there in their environment. And because of that inherent rationality, it's unusually easy for well-meaning adults to accidentally endorse and reinforce the child's fear. Let's be honest, we don't like getting stung either. When a child sees that an adult also recognizes the threat and kind of tenses up, it completely validates their anxiety. It tells their developing brain, yep, this thing really is out to get you, and even the grown-ups are worried.
Moving on to Section 2, the flight pattern problem, or the psychology of unpredictability. Now, a rational fear is one thing, but what turns reasonable, everyday caution into a full-blown phobia that shrinks a child's entire summer down to the four walls of their living room? Well, the answer lies in the insect's unpredictable flight pattern. A wasp doesn't just sit there quietly. It darts around, it changes direction erratically, and crucially, it hovers and follows you. Think about the exact difference between walking past a large, muscular dog that is safely held on a tight lead by its owner versus encountering that exact same large dog running loose and charging directly at you down the sidewalk. Right? It is the exact same animal, posing the same theoretical threat, but it produces a completely different physiological and psychological response. The lead offers predictability. It allows your nervous system to stay calm because you know the boundary of the threat. The loose dog offers total chaos, which instantly spikes your cortisol and adrenaline. To a young child trying to enjoy a popsicle, a wasp is the loose dog.
Ultimately, fear demands prediction. Our brains are literally hardwired to want to know where the danger is and exactly where it's going next so we can successfully avoid it. Take a second to think about that. When you can predict a threat, you can manage it. But because the child cannot do the one thing their fear demands, predict where that buzzing, erratic danger will dart to next, they are completely stripped of all their coping mechanisms. When prediction fails completely, the brain just goes into overdrive. The only strategy left in a child's toolkit is the primal fight-or-flight response. To flee, to flail their arms wildly in a desperate attempt to create a barrier, or to just absolutely refuse to go outside at all where the unpredictable threat lives.
Okay, Section 3, 3 steps to help. This is your actionable toolkit.
The good news is we don't have to just sit by and watch them panic all summer. We can shift our momentum from merely understanding the problem to actively solving it and equip them with a real toolkit. Based on behavioral evidence, there is a highly effective, simple 3-step action plan to equip your child to handle their fear, all without accidentally making the anxiety worse. We're going to look at teaching the freeze, removing ambush conditions, and laddering the exposure. Let's break these down one by one so you can see exactly how to implement them in your own backyard.
Step 1. Teach the freeze, not the flap. When a child panics, their immediate instinct is to wave their arms frantically to swat the bug away. We've all seen the windmill arms. But here is a fascinating fact you can share with your child. To a tiny insect, a flapping, wildly moving arm looks exactly like an aggressive predator attacking. Waving actually triggers the insect's defensive stinging response. So instead, teach them that standing completely still, like a statue, or calmly walking away does not trigger a sting, because they no longer look like a threat to the bug.
By teaching the freeze, you are giving the child a safe, physical action that they can actually control in a terrifying moment of panic. It replaces their feeling of total helplessness with a concrete, science-backed strategy.
Step 2. Reduce surprise encounters by intentionally removing what we call ambush conditions. This means establishing new summer habits. Things like always putting lids on sweet summer drinks, making sure kids wear shoes when running through patches of clover where bees love to forage, and always wiping those sticky popsicle hands before going to play. Why is this so crucial? Well, because fewer surprise encounters simply means fewer stings, and fewer stings means fewer confirmations of their absolute worst fears. More importantly, there's a powerful psychology of empowerment here. When a child actively participates in removing these ambushes, like intentionally choosing to wipe their hands to keep the bees away, they feel like they're taking back control of their own environment.
And step 3, ladder the exposure. You want to reintroduce the outdoors gradually and systematically. Start incredibly safe. Maybe just observing a bee foraging behind a closed glass window from the safety of the living room, or even just watching a short video clip of a wasp building a nest. Then over time, you graduate to spotting a distant bee in the garden together, and eventually working all the way up to having a full picnic outside again. But please hear this warning. This requires immense patience. Caregivers often try to rush from step 1 to step 4 in a single sunny afternoon, because hey, they want to get back to having fun. The absolute secret here is that the child must set the pace. They must always know, without a shadow of a doubt, that they have the option to step back to a previous rung on the ladder if they feel overwhelmed.
Which brings us to Section 4. Your reaction matters most. The ultimate trigger.
This brings us to the single most crucial element in understanding this whole dynamic: you. More specifically, the adult's own physical and emotional reaction to the insect when it inevitably crashes the summer barbecue. Because the one thing that makes childhood fear instantly worse is your own flinch. Psychologists actually refer to this as social referencing. Children are constantly actively reading the faces and body language of the adults around them to decide what is dangerous in the world. They literally rely on you to interpret reality. So if a wasp flies by and you, their ultimate protector, flinch, shriek, or violently swat at it, you have just instantly validated their absolute worst panic. You have confirmed to their little nervous system that the loose dog is indeed out to get them.
There's a saying for this. A parent shrieking and swatting at a wasp teaches more in one single second than a whole week of calm reassurance can undo. You simply cannot talk a child out of a fear if your body language is simultaneously telling them to run for their lives. Action speaks so much louder than words in moments of anxiety. You absolutely must practice and model the calm, controlled walkaway that you want your child to learn and mimic. If you can stay calm, they eventually learn that they can stay calm too.
Finally, Section 5. When to seek outside help and drawing the safety line.
Before we wrap up, it is absolutely critical to establish a very clear boundary between a psychological fear that you can manage at home with the toolkit we just discussed and a true medical emergency that requires professional intervention. We must always prioritize physical safety first. If your child has ever had a severe physical reaction to a sting, and by that I mean swelling well beyond the actual sting site, any breathing difficulty whatsoever, or feelings of faintness, that is a medical issue, not a fear issue. You need to see a doctor for allergy testing immediately. Never try to diagnose or manage this yourself. However, if the fear alone is keeping the child completely trapped indoors all summer long and they have absolutely no medical history of severe allergic reactions, well, that's a fear issue. And the great news is, a pediatric therapist can usually treat specific phobias like this very quickly and highly effectively.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to really reflect on as you head into the warm summer months. The next time a wasp predictably flies by your table in an unpredictable way, what will your face teach your child? Remember the toolkit, teach the freeze, and model the calm. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and here's to taking back your summer.